The Battle of Rocroi of 19 May 1643 resulted in the victory of a French army under the Duc d'Enghien against the Spanish army under General Francisco de Melo, only 5 days after the accession of Louis XIV of France to the throne of France. Late in the 30 Years' War, the battle is considered by many the turning point of the perceived invincibility of the Spanish tertio. Prelude: the Habsburg Spanish army of about 27,000 men advanced from Flanders, through the Ardennes, and into northern France to relieve French pressure on the Franche-Comté and Catalonia. The Spanish troops set siege to Rocroi, which lay athwart the route to the valley of the Oise. The French, under the command of 21-year-old Louis, Duc d'Enghien, reacted quickly and forced a battle before the arrival of 6,000 Spanish reinforcements. The Spanish failed to block the route to Rocroi, which passed through a defile bordered by woods and marsh. Enghien advanced through the defile and assembled his force along a ridge looking down on the besieged town of Rocroi. The Spanish quickly formed up between the town and the ridge. The French army, some 23,000 strong, was arranged with 2 lines of infantry in the center, squadrons of cavalry on each wing, and with a thin line of artillery at the front. The Spanish army was similarly arranged, but with its infantry in their traditional tertios, or squares. The 2 armies bivouacked in the positions for the night. Battle. The battle began after dawn. The French army attacked, but the French infantry in the center were bested by the Spanish. The cavalry on the French left, advancing against Enghien's orders, was also thrown back, but the cavalry on the French right, under the command of Jean de Gassion, routed the Spanish cavalry opposite. Enghien was able to follow this up by attacking the exposed left flank of the Spanish infantry. Spanish cavalry made a successful counter-attack to drive off the French cavalry, but were checked by the advance of the French reserve. Enghien now carried out a huge cavalry encirclement, sweeping behind the Spanish army and smashing his way through to attack the rear of the Spanish cavalry, which was still in combat with his reserves. The Spanish horse was put to flight, leaving the Spanish infantry to carry on the fight. The French were twice repulsed by the stubborn Spanish squares, so Enghien arranged for his artillery and captured Spanish guns to blast him apart. The German and Walloon tertios fled from the battlefield, while the Spanish remained on the field with their commander, repulsing 4 cavalry charges by the French and never breaking formation, despite repeated heavy artillery bombardment. Enghien then offered surrender conditions just like those obtained by a besieged garrison in a fortress. Having agreed to those terms, the remains of the 2 tertios left the field with deployed flags and weapons. The total Spanish losses were about 7,000 dead, wounded, or captured. French losses were about 4,000. Significance. The battle was an important propaganda victory for Mazarin and Enghien, the future Great Condé, and represented a weakening of the besieged Spanish Low Countries. It was also of symbolic importance, as it was one of the few major battlefield defeats of a Spanish army in over a century and, moreover, a defeat of one of its most famous units. It has been noted that Melo's German, Walloon, and Italian troops actually surrendered first, while the Spanish infantry surrendered only after standing hours of infantry and cavalry charges and a vicious spell under the French guns. They were given the treatment usually given to a fortress garrison and retired from the field with their arms, flags and honors. Military intervention by Bourbon France had proved a very different matter from the Valois contests of the previous century. It was the new nature and weight of absolute monarchy in France which was now to encompass the downfall of Spanish imperial power in Europe. With the end of the French wars of religion, Cardinal Mazarin slowly turned the tide against the Spanish in France and in the Low Countries. Mazarin's alliance with England resulted in the defeat of the Spanish army of Flanders at the Battle of the Dunes and consequently the Treaty of the Pyrenees. Although Spain looked to be all-powerful in 1652, the peace settlement reflected the demise of Spain's mastery of Europe in the late 1650s. In media, a 2006 Spanish movie, A la Trista, directed by Agustín Díaz-Llanes, portrays this battle in its final scene. The soundtrack features in this scene a funeral march, La Madrigal, composed by Colonel Abel Merino for the Holy Week of Seville, played by the band of the Regiment Soria 9, of that which participated in the battle, the oldest unit in the Spanish army, and since nicknamed the Bloody Tercio. Museum. The sedan chair belonging to the elderly Spanish infantry General Fontaine was taken as a trophy by the French and may be seen in the Museum of Les Invalides in Paris. Fontaine was killed in the battle. Enghien is reported to have said, "Had I not won the day, I wish I had died like him."